Welcome, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all of the lands we are on this morning, those of the Matagami and Matachewan First Nations in the Treaty 9 territory. We acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home, and we do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility to improving relationships between nations and improving our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. The Chamber continues to advocate for Indigenous issues so that Timmins can continue to walk the path to reconciliation together. Welcome to our session entitled Funding with Finesse, What You Need to Know Before Applying for Funding. My name is Mike Scott, and I'm the Business Development Consultant at the Business Enterprise Center and your moderator for today's session. I also want to extend a special welcome to any business or organization joining us across the 32 Northern Chambers of Commerce. The Chamber continues to facilitate programming under our Reimagined Resiliency, a series to ensure our businesses can navigate any storm. Under the Financial Literacy pillar, proudly supported by the Business Enterprise Center as well as the Venture Center, we welcome Roxanne Daoust, Executive Director of the Venture Center, who will guide us through today's session. The Business Enterprise Center provides training and programs to help entrepreneurs, SMEs, and startups to launch, expand, and grow. Our business consulting services foster an entrepreneurial culture and support new jobs and employment throughout the region. All of our services are fully bilingual and free of charge. You can contact us for support with business registration, business planning, funding and financing, or to apply for our programs such as Starter Company Plus and Summer Company. Today, Roxanne will share her expertise with grant and loan writing as she walks attendees through what makes an impactful application. You will all learn of key mistakes to avoid when applying for funds, tips for submitting a successful grant application, in addition to techniques used to optimize your chances of getting approved for business loans. At this time, I'd like to introduce today's guest speaker. Roxanne Daoust was born and raised in Timmins. She has 20 years of economic development and business planning experience. She joined the Venture Center in 2002 as an export and industrial research assistant. She went on to become the business development officer for the next 9 years. During this time, she worked with entrepreneurs in all stages of business planning. In April 2012, Roxanne was promoted to business consultant, where she became responsible for the administration of the CFDC's multi-million-dollar investment portfolio. In 2014, Roxanne was once again promoted to her current position of executive director for the corporation, where she now manages a $10 million local investment portfolio. Roxanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen now. And there we are. All right. So in today's session, I'm going to give a short explanation of who I am and how the Venture Center CFDC can assist you, whether you're a not-for-profit organization or someone looking to start a business or looking to expand. I'll touch on some very common mistakes that you should avoid, and I'm going to give you 10 tips for a successful grant application and finish off with 10 tips for a successful loan funding application. A little bit about the Venture Center. I'm the executive director of the Venture Center CFDC, Community Futures Development Corporation. I've been with the organization for 20 years in December, and I've helped hundreds of businesses or not-for-profits along the way. So the Venture Center, like I mentioned, is the Community Futures Development Corporation, and there's 268 offices like mine across the country that are funded by the federal government through their regional development agencies in their area. So for us here in Timmins, our program is run through FedNor. Our mission is to assist economic growth in rural communities. And what's unique about our approach is that we're funded by FedNor. Although we're funded by FedNor, all our decisions from our key priorities, projects that I work on, grants or loans even, are made by a board of local volunteers representing various small communities or sectors. And so this is a true grassroots approach to economic development. Here at the Venture Center, we have 4 pillars. So we do strategic planning, community development, which also encompasses sometimes financial or in-kind contribution to projects, free community business consultations, as well as our lending portfolio, so our business loans. Now let's dive into the common mistakes. You've shed blood, sweat, and tears to get your grant application into the funder. You sit and you wait nervously, twiddling your thumbs. Maybe your charity, volunteer organizations, or not-for-profit is really relying on your grant writing wizardry to win the day. Weeks pass. You get a letter, maybe an email in your inbox, and you open it, twitching in anticipation. Then your heart sinks, another rejection. You sigh, you check the letter in the bin, or you delete the email, and you wonder, how did this go wrong? Then you curse under your breath because you know that you're going to have to tell everyone else that it was declined. Rejection hurts, and no one likes to be rejected in general, especially when other people are really relying on you. And rest assured, you're not alone. Nonprofits of every size and scope struggle with the same core issues when it comes to creating a winning grant proposal, and often make the same basic mistakes in approach or execution. So to help you on your way, I've created a list of 5 common mistakes to avoid when writing your grant application. So the first is not understanding the priorities of the funder. Each funder has an interest in making grants for a particular purpose, sometimes a very specific purpose. Many grant proposals never have a chance at success because of superficial research. It's not enough to know that an organization gives grants. Do they support not-for-profits, or do they support private sector business? And if they do support private sector, do they support startup or expansion? Do they only support specific industry? These are all part of research that should be done before you invest time and effort in applying. Missing deadlines. This is a critical mistake and is so easily avoidable, yet it happens all the time. Honestly, I've even been caught with this, and actually even more than once. The funding deadlines are usually very rigid, and it's extremely rare that any extension is allowed. So for me, this happened to me in a different organization where I was responsible in providing a grant, providing the funding. And I thought I had enough time. I thought I even had it in my calendar with a few days extra leeway. Well, I got busy with a client that came in, and priority was I had to help this client. And I just lost track of time. And I thought, you know, it's okay. Tomorrow's the real deadline. The next day, the Wi-Fi went out. We had a major issue here, and I was not able to submit my application on time, resulting in the application not being eligible for funding. And it was devastating. Also, not following application guidelines. When proposals are turned in without the requested documentation, it makes the funder wonder, did they even review the guidelines? And your application is immediately set aside in the decline pile. Often, funding sources will provide a checklist of set guidelines for you to follow. Make sure you're submitting everything you need. Print out the guidelines or checklists and use it as a guide while putting together your grant proposal. Also, have at least 2 other colleagues review your final proposal before submitting it to make sure everything is there. If you are submitting the proposal electronically, you will want to double and maybe even triple check it before you hit send. Using acronyms. Whether it's company jargon, industry acronyms, or just general abbreviations, these unclear messages may confuse the reviewer. It's not wise to assume that the reader of your proposal is privy to the language that is used within your company or personal network. If a reviewer has to spend time figuring out the meaning behind your abbreviation, your proposal is more likely to be set aside. And I'll be honest, we're so guilty of using these acronyms and getting used to it. They become part of your daily verbiage, and it's easy to forget that although I use the word CFDC on multiple times in a day, that the reader of a grant may not know that CFDC means Community Futures Development Corporation. Spelling mistakes. This may seem too basic, but I see it so often that it's definitely worth mentioning. Incorrect spelling sends a message that little effort went into the planning of the proposal. Having a third-party review your proposal makes all the difference to make sure you're presenting your proposal in a way that says exactly what you want to say to the reviewer. Now, let's dive in. Let's dive into the tips for a successful grant application. And I'm going to give you 10 tips to assist you in increasing your chances of being approved. So more than ever, organizations are relying on the support of grants to assist them in operations or implementing their projects or events. It's an extremely competitive process. Funds are usually limited and application demand surpass several times over the funds available. Applications are shortlisted several times to accommodate, and these tips will help you to improve your chances at being a successful applicant. All right, so the next is to research available grants. Although there are some grant sources that have been around for a long time, like Ontario Trillium Foundation or the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, the funding streams for even these programs do change. So research is required to make sure you're applying for the funding that works best for you. More recently, as a response to the current economic climate, new funding opportunities were created to stimulate recovery for business, but also organizations and communities. So a great source to find out what funding is available is to reach out to your local business enterprise center or the Community Futures Development Corporation or your local chamber of commerce. All these great organizations often have a list of current and most common funding opportunities that are available. So, you know, there are always a lot of great opportunities for funding, whether it's for not-for-profit or for private sector. However, they change so quickly that no one can have a list of what's available today might not be relevant for what's tomorrow. So it's so important to research what's available when you know that you have a project coming up, because not only do they change quickly, the opening opportunity for you to be able to access them are often very time specific. So reach out to your local organizations to find out what's coming up for the projects that you're considering doing. Next is to download the application guidelines. Foundations, corporations, and government agencies receive thousands of grant proposals. And one of the ways we sort through the application is to see who followed the directions. If the funder requires a 3-year budget, create one. If they require to use paper clips instead of staples, use them. Often for me, I recommend that you specifically use the verbiage from the guidelines in your application to make sure that you hit those keywords that they're looking for. Again, because there's so many applications that are constantly coming through, we have no choice but to, we can only fund so much. So one of the ways that we do is we often look for, when we have our priorities, we check to see if the applicants match those priorities, and using those keywords that are in their guidelines gives you that advantage. That likely, you know, if I say I'm looking for assisting in strategic planning and your application says we're working on a strategic plan, then those keywords match and you're more likely to go to the next screening process of your application. Tip number 3 is get feedback from the agency representative. Extremely important. So contact the program officer for whatever funding agency you're applying to. Let them know about your project and ask for any pointers that can help you improve the application. They will usually gladly let you know if your project is a good fit for their program or if it's not. And it'll save you a lot of time in applying if it's not a good fit. It's also a really, really great introduction to them for your project, as usually that exact program officer is the first line of review, and screening must be they're the first line of review and screening and must provide support of your application for it to move over to the next phase of review. So creating that link so that they already heard of your program, of your project, is providing you an extra advantage that when they see the application come in, they're going to recognize it and they're going to say, that's already a great deal. And they're going to move your application forward to the next step. You're more likely that they will. Understanding the deadlines. This is a big mistake that applying for any funding is quick. The application can be extremely long, and depending on the grant, it could take months, several months, to hear whether you've received funding or not. So example, it is very likely that if you would apply for a grant in January, that you won't hear anything back until June or perhaps July. And this makes it extremely difficult for planning for projects, as you can't rely on that funding until it's approved. Also, some grants explain the timelines in their guidelines and open up annually, while others are always open up for applications. So make sure you check the deadlines so that you don't miss out. And it's also important to check those deadlines because the ones that are revolving and come around, you might be thinking you want to do something in the summer. Well, find out as soon as you decide that there is an idea that you have, research the grants that are available today, but knowing what might be coming open in the future so that you're ready to apply when that funding portal opens up. You don't want to miss out. Another rookie mistake is waiting until the last minute to submit your application. Oftentimes, there's multiple steps in an application. It's not simply submit the application online. There's often multiple steps, like you may need a special key to access, or you may need to register your organization to be able to access the application. And each phase must be done within a certain time frame. And last minute applications are at the mercy of a jam system receiving multiple applications on the last day, which could cause the funder system to crash and not accept your submission. And although this actually does happen, the funders always warn all applicants to not submit on the last day, as this could happen and 0 extensions are ever provided. Very critical mistake to not do. Never submit on the last day. Next is to link your project to the priorities of the funder. One common mistake when it comes to applying for funding is trying to get in where you don't fit. So example is attempting to apply for a grant that's not totally aligned with your organization and its programs. The issue with trying to twist and turn a grant to fit, twist and turn a grant to suit you and your organization is that the grants come with conditions. So in other words, there's never any free money to just spend as you please. When you apply for a grant, if you say you plan to use the funds for supplies or for a particular event, that's exactly what the funders expect you to do and exactly what you're going to be responsible to report on. Doing something that wasn't part of the plan or that wasn't approved as an eligible expense will result in you not being approved, and you're going to have to reimburse the money if you spent it on something that was not part of the original plan. So making a clear connection also between your organization's mission and services and the goals of the funder you're applying to is probably the most fundamental element of any successful grant request. So that's why it's so critical to find a grant that naturally aligns with your organization's mission and vision and goals. So making the case for partnership should really be seamless, easy and reiterated throughout your request. If it feels like a stretch, when you're writing it, it probably is one. And in that case, you're probably best seeking funding elsewhere. So like I said earlier, use the very specific verbiage as much as possible throughout your application, making sure that, if they say that their pillars, their target market of that grant is technology, that you say how your business is supporting technology. You want to make sure that you link your business to the grant's purpose. Otherwise, you could be wasting a lot of time and resources applying for a grant that just doesn't fit. Next is to describe the issue and how your project's going to address it. So this is very important. It's one of the common mistakes that a lot of organizations commit. So it's unclear project objectives is one of the main reasons why it's going to fail. A well-written proposal needs to have a clear goal and a focused plan to meet the said goal. So it must provide the requirements, the information about the budget, the details of the program, What are the needs and the time required to finish the project? So again, without having just a bunch of fluff, they want to know what is the problem and how is your project going to fix that problem. So it's extremely important that it's clear and concise, and often even has character restrictions. So you have to say it within 5,000 characters. So make sure that you're able to clearly say what is the project, what is the solution within that, and clearly within that time frame. Using all characters is not always a benefit to you. So you don't have to use, if you're able to clearly explain what the program is and the benefit of it, you don't have to just add a bunch of fluff to fill in the space. That's not always a benefit to you as an applicant. Making sure the budget relates with the plan. So we all know that budgets are super important aspects of any grant proposal. And yet so many organizations neglect to include a budget in their application, or they often submit a sloppy budget. So even if a funding agency does not provide a template, they will have a specific area of what they see, what they want to see in a proposal budget. So it's also important to note that the program officer reviewing your budget will have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of similar budgets, and they're going to know immediately if your budget is reasonable for the project or not. The budget that accompanies a grant proposal should be prepared with the same care and using the exact same narrative description and match point for point. So if you're saying that you're looking for a grant for a major expansion, you're going to be buying 3 dump trucks. Well, your budget should reflect the purchase and probably should have supporting documentation to show the price and costing of those 3 dump trucks. Showing the costing of 1 dump truck is not going to be a good situation for you when your budget and your plan don't match up. So it's really, really important to take the time to do the budget that matches with your application. Measurable results. At the start of the narrative, show grantors why they should fund your project. So answer that "so what" questions when you're speaking of the worth of your request. So your proposal may be practical and may be perfect, and it might involve a very all-star team. Yet if the reviewers can't see the impact through measurable results, like perhaps number of jobs created or number of people trained, or perhaps dollar value of economic spinoff, you risk the chances of not getting funding. All funders need to see what a measurable impact of their dollars are. No funder wants to provide dollars to an organization, a project, or a business that's not going to have a bang for the dollars that they're investing into this project. So it's very important. Know what the impact is going to be, how are you going to measure it, and make sure that it's clear in the application that you say why they should be investing in you. Next is show how you plan for errors within and beyond your control. Again, make sure that you thoroughly go through the SWOT. So the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats of your project, and make sure to address all of the possible weaknesses and threats so that the funder can be assured that you do have a plan B for all situations. So example is, what if your volunteers don't show up? What if it rains during your planned outdoor event? Those are very simple things to consider, but they would have a huge impact on your project. And again, the funders want to see that this project is going to be successful no matter what. So you need to make sure that you have a plan in place to address all of the weaknesses or threats that could affect the success of your event. And that's what the funder is going to be looking for and could make or break your approval. Submit all required info and supporting documents. As a funder, I see this all the time. So yes, filling in a form could definitely be tedious, especially if you're in a rush. And I know that there's often those little tick boxes that seem useless sections that you think that you could probably skip over. And you can't always rely on the system prompting you to complete all the fields that you may have missed. But from a funder's perspective, all those boxes are there for a reason. And you need to pay attention and make sure that you provide the required information. That is specific to your organization and the funder's requirements. Some of the most common things applicants don't fill out is contact details. Either they don't complete them fully or they leave sections blank, or the organization's details and address not being fully completed. Not providing the required number of contacts for your organization. If your organization requires 2 contacts, we need to have that alternate. Not providing the business number, if it's a business grant. Those are things are very, very critical because we have funders. We have to be able to report this to our funders to show, how many businesses and they're legit businesses that we've assisted. So those types of little things could really have a huge impact if you do not fill them out. Some people don't fill out the whole project description or the project ideas. And every application that is incomplete will either get rejected outright, or if you have a generous staff that's in charge of your program, then it wastes a lot of time because now they're going to have to go back to the applicant to get that information. So make sure to check everything on the form has always been completed and all of the required contact and organization details have been provided. Then check it again to be sure. Then go get somebody else to check it, because it's no good having an amazing application if the basics are incomplete. Next is submit on time. I know I've said it multiple times already, but that final deadline is critical. Absolutely do not wait for that last day to submit. There is zero flexibility if something happens and you don't submit on time. Also, you also actually have to watch for the exact time that a program closes, because even something as simple as a different time zone could make or break your application being submitted on time if you wait for that last day. So I've seen that. So some applications are, their head office is not in Ontario, it may be in Newfoundland, and their noon is not our noon. So if you think that you can submit it at the end of the day, it's unfortunately, it's just not going to work. So it's extremely critical to make sure that to avoid submitting on that last time when you're applying for granting funding. So I'm going to jump into the loan part, and we're going a little bit quicker than I thought, but that's okay. Then we'll have more time for questions at the end. So tips for applying for financing and loans. Applying for a loan is extremely different than applying for a grant. So one of the major differences is usually the supporting documents that are going to be required. So I want to go over the 10 tips that I would give a client when they're applying for a loan, whether it be with an organization like the Venture Center, conventional bank, the BDC, or perhaps even NADF. Number 1 is understanding your borrowing needs. Knowing why you need a loan helps to figure out what type of loan that you're going to need. So the stage of your business will also determine your eligibility for some loan programs. There are multiple types of business loans available, and those options vary depending on your needs. Also, the length of the loan that you may need, or special terms of a loan that you also may need. You also need to understand how much you're going to need and how much debt you can afford, as taking on too much debt can result in a cash flow crunch when you can least afford it. If you need a $50,000 loan, for example, and although your cash flow shows that you have annual profits of $30,000 per year, it's a really terrible idea to ask for a 2-year loan repayment. Although you'll obviously save in interest, you're putting a huge repayment obligation on your business, and it's extremely difficult to extend loan terms once they've already been set. So really, you need to understand exactly how much money you need and what you need the money for. And then The person that's reviewing your file will be able to either refer you to the right organization that can meet those needs for you, or put you in the right program, period. Next, you need to know what type of loan do you need. So there is a plethora of different lending programs available. Do you need a line of credit? Do you need a business credit card? Do you need a short-term loan or a long-term loan? So for example, a line of credit is very useful for managing the business cash flow and unexpected expenses. Whereas an equipment loan, you can buy equipment or vehicles through this type of loan, and they're actually often easier to get because the lender has access to hard security in the event of default. There's also guaranteed small business loans, working capital loans, small business credit cards, or commercial real estate loans. So there is, again, all kinds, and you don't have to always know right away what one will best fit your organization, but it's great for you to have an idea of what money do you need, what are you using it for, and then from there you'll be able to be provided with what type of loan will better suit the program that you're doing. Approaching the right lender and understanding timelines. So like I mentioned earlier, not all lenders are going to fund startup, for example. There's actually very few lenders that will assist with startup. Also, your credit rating will play a huge role on your eligibility. Some lenders will only work with specific industries, again, like technology, for example. It's important to do your research for what you need and then ask about timelines. So typically, lending for a business loan is much longer timeline than for a personal loan. Smaller loans can be processed quicker. However, for larger loans, for me, it could take 6 to 8 weeks from the time that an application is received with all required documents to the time that the loan is approved, legal documents are signed, and the funds are deposited in your account. So it's a very important for a client to know that they can't just walk into a lender and say, I need a business loan to meet my payroll and I need the money today. That is absolutely not. It's extremely rare that will happen under a commercial account. The reality is there's a significant amount of due diligence required when we're doing commercial lending. So you need to really be on top of your cash flow, understand what is happening financially in your business to be able to know and plan ahead so that you could access funding and have it in time when you do need it. So understanding those timelines of how long will it take to get money from a CFDC, or how long it'll take it to get it from an ADF or from the conventional bank. It's critical that you find that out before you're in a cash crunch and you're wondering how you're making your payroll. So it's great to always be aware of those timelines. Next is be credible and informed. Understanding your business and show how you have the experience, the skills, and the confidence to build your business and carry out the project for which you're borrowing money. You have to believe in your project or the funders won't. So we see that a lot where a lot of business owners, they're great. They're fantastic at, doing the mechanics part, but understanding the business plan or writing the business plan they struggle a little bit more with that. And that's okay. But it's important as a lender that you show how you're able to overcome your weaknesses that you may have, and that you as a business owner, you understand still what your business is and you have a plan in place to address any of your weaknesses. You also must, you have to believe in your business's success. If you don't believe in it, neither is the funder. You also have to be honest. If you know that you are at the verge of bankruptcy, you need to disclose that to your funder. You need to say, I am at a business and I'm in a cash crunch and I need help now, and perhaps it was a bad year. And that's okay. Funders don't always have to see that there's a huge profit margin. If you're able to describe the current economic climate for you and say, this happened, but this is my plan to change the situation, and this is my new projections, if I'm able to overcome this obstacle, that's really what a lender wants to see. They want to see that, this is a situation, this is how we addressed it, and this is how we're moving forward. But hiding it and not being truthful, it's going to result in your application being declined, because no lender will lend without doing a credit check of some kind. And it's all going to come out if you've missed, any payments, or if you're in a huge financial crunch. They're going to be able to see it. And then not being truthful is just going to be a red flag that should your loan have some difficulties, that the communication won't be truthful moving forward. So always be truthful with your lender. Communication is key. And just believe in your business and ask for help. The next is fully complete the entire application form. I know I had said it earlier, but I often see clients submit partial applications and then they wait, wondering when they're going to get their answer for approval. And the reality is that if you don't submit the entire application form fully completed, the process is going to take much longer, as the reviewer will not have the information that they need to complete the due diligence and move the file up to the next process. It's really not uncommon to have dozens of emails back and forth looking for more information. And this takes time, and it could cause weeks and delays. So although some organizations will say to apply for funding, here's a checklist of documents that are going to be required, don't be surprised if you don't submit all those documents, that there's going to be a delay, because the lender will have to reach out to you and get all those information. But also sometimes it's out of the lender's control that the application, the supporting documents that are provided, raise additional questions that they then have to respond to. So example is, if you tell me as a business, you're applying for a loan to purchase a property and you provide me all of the great documents, but the property, then I see the documents say that the property is not even zoned commercial, then I'm going to have zoning questions that I'm going to have to ask you to prove that the zoning is going to be appropriate for the type of business. So those are all little things that I can't say that I'm going to need until I see the documents that are being provided. And every application for every lender is always evaluated independently. So things change, but usually in the basic application, they want to make sure that everything that they ask for is because they need it. So make sure that everything that's in their original application is submitted, and it's just going to make the process so much faster. Because also, not all lenders will go out that extra step and ask for those additional documents. Sometimes they're going to see, well, they didn't even fill in all their application, decline. And the sad reality is that happens. For me, I like to say that I'll go above and beyond and try to get those documents. But again, it's all the clients, the entrepreneur's responsibility to make sure that they provide it, because I have 50 other applications happening at the same time. So while I'm waiting for your documents, your file is being set aside. So the faster you get the application in and supporting documents, the faster the process will be for you. Next is preparing and understanding your business plan. Lenders like careful planners, so be sure to have a clear, detailed explanation of your business and its goals. Identify the ownership, structure, and market analysis, including competitive advantage, and be ready to discuss your product and services, your industry, and the steps you're taking to build your business's long-term success. So your business plan should really outline the project and how much you need, how much you're going to contribute. Also, quotes for equipment or leasehold improvements are often also required. Templates for business plans are available in multiple different formats. Likely every lender out there will have a template that they use. However, I like to refer clients actually to the Business Enterprise Center. They have a proven format, a very thorough format that they use, and they actually assist you. An example is their Start a Company program, where they assist the clients in not only filling out the application, but understanding where they're getting the data and the information to fill it out. And that's critical, because when they arrive at our table to discuss their business loan, they understand what they're doing and why you need the money. And that is very, very important. So I also recognize that there are services out there where you can hire a consultant to write a business plan for you. And those are fantastic services, specifically for clients who are really busy already operating their business and they need that extra hand. But you need to read that business plan, because I'm going to ask you those questions after. And if you don't understand what your business is or who your competitors are, or I see an error in what I think is an error in your plan and or a possible obstacle, if you can't answer that, then it goes against the credibility of you as an entrepreneur and your capacity to be able to make this plan happen. So you have to understand what you're writing and be able to explain it to me. Next is understanding your financials. So the photo you see with some shoebox receipts, that happens a lot. So depending on the size of your loan, the financials will be reviewed by the lender. Make sure they're complete, correct, and thorough. Make sure they include a balance sheet and an income and loss statement, and even cash flow projections are great. The lender is looking for gross margin, debt to equity ratios, accounts payables and receivables, as well as what we really need to know is, do you have the ability to service the new debt? That's what we're looking for in your financials. Very frequently, we see clients come in with shoebox of receipts, and that's just not acceptable accounting. And it's going to cause big delays in your application, if not a decline. It is highly, highly recommended that every entrepreneur invest some time in learning basic bookkeeping skills and use software to organize and maintain the records. Another option, if financially feasible for your business, is to hire a bookkeeper to assist you in this aspect of the business. It's important to still understand the financials if you do contract it out. We also often see projections that are very unrealistic. It's important that you research and you include all the business expenses and revenues. I've come across several business plans where in the first year they're going to be making millions of dollars, and and also they're not going to be taking a salary or doing an owner's contribute, like an owner's draw. And unfortunately, that's just not realistic. I'm not saying that a business won't make $1 million, but the likelihood of all businesses making that kind of money on your first year are a little unlikely. It's important that you be realistic. And also a very important thing is the black market. So it exists. There are cash deals, which cause major problems when you're looking for financing. So aside from it actually being illegal to not declare all revenues for tax purposes, as a funder, I can only assess your business on the funds that you're reporting on your financials. And I also verify those financials and the numbers you're reporting against your notice of assessment to ensure that what you're reporting in your financials match your official government returns. So if you're participating in black market cash deals, you're really hurting your business. And I understand that happens, and that at the time you may have had your reasons, but it is still illegal. And as a funder, I will not be able to count that in an assessment. And it also is a red flag that you're doing some shady stuff. So avoid that as much as possible. Don't go there. It's best to make sure that your financial statements are accurate, and that they match your government returns. So sources for helping you with your bookkeeping skills. I know that Mike, again, he at the Business Center, Price Center, he assists some clients with through the startup company with understanding some of the financial software that's available out there, like Sage or QuickBooks. And the Chamber of Commerce also recently had a workshop that assisted, I think it was hosted by MNP, that explained how to access some of the online software to take care of your books. So reach out to those organizations and they'll certainly be able to guide you in the right steps, in the right place, to be able to find out how you can take your shoebox receipts and move it forward into an online platform. Next, expect to contribute some funds and be prepared to offer personal security. No lender ever is going to fund a business at 100%. The amount of contribution that an owner must put into their business is often 50%, but actually probably more frequently, depending on current lenders, you might get 25% of eligible costs. And these are, there may be even times as a owner contribution could be as low as 10%, but that's usually when there's a significant asset of security on the loan. Each loan is obviously always negotiated on their own merits, but it's important to be ready to invest in the business. And putting your personal security. Personal security is often required depending on the lender and the amount of the loan. Most lenders will always ask for personal guarantee from the business owners. For my office on larger loans, I even like to take a second position mortgage on personal property. So I have no interest in calling on that security. I don't want people's homes. It's just an extra measure to secure a loan and to make sure that the loan is more favorable, as it's then more likely to recover should the business not succeed. However, often owners are hesitant to put their personal homes as security. But in reality, if they don't believe in their business that it's going to be successful in paying off the loan, then why should I, as a lender, take that risk either? So, because once the loan is paid, the mortgage is going to be released. So I do see that quite often, that people are hesitant. And that's what I explain. Look, should your business have a difficulty, I do not want to go get your home. I don't want to evict anybody. It's a way to it's a way to have better security, and to know it forces almost a better communication with the client, that they're willing to call me and say, hey, I can't make my payment right now. We just had a major loss. We lost a major contract and I'm tight for the next 3 months. Well, I can sit down and renegotiate loan terms with the client that's in a financial difficulty. And that client is more likely to reach out to me to negotiate those types of accommodations if there's a mortgage on their personal property. Then if I don't take personal property, they're more likely, if they had a big issue in their business, they're more likely that they'll just say, well, I'm not paying the loan, and that's it, that's all. So that's why we do that. It's just to help encourage an opener, a better communication with the client. It's not because we want someone's home. So please rest assured that as soon as the loan is paid out, if you believe in your loan, we'll believe in your loan. More likely we'll believe in your loan, and once everything works out, then it'll be released. But I also see a lot of clients that say, well, I incorporate in my business so that I don't have to do a personal guarantee. Well, unfortunately, your business as an incorporation does become its own entity. However, it has no credit. So just like you getting a loan as a person, if you have no credit, you need to go get a cosigner. And that's essentially what you're doing for your business, is you are co-signing your business's loans. That's why it's a personal guarantee. And that's going to be required for likely a long time for your business. We require on all of our commercial loans, the owners must do personal guarantees on all loans that are provided for a corporation. It's just the way it is. It's one of our policies, but I understand that a lot of people incorporate thinking that they're getting away from needing to personally co-sign on their loans. But I know for us, we still require it. And a lot of lenders also require it. I actually haven't heard of any that would do a startup corporation loan without personal guarantees. Submit all supporting documentation. So just like earlier, a delay in submitting all the required documents is just going to cause the application to be declined, or it's going to delay it from being approved. So it's really important to read each application form and find out what supporting document is required and just provide them. Be prepared and available to answer emails or communication from the lender, as additional questions will come up as they review the submitted documents. So like I said earlier, I'm currently working on an application for a property, and I just found out that the property is not zoned properly. And so it's causing extra delays for this client, because now I need to go and confirm zoning matches what we need. That'll be a commercial zoning, because purchasing a property is great, but if you can't do your business on that property, well, that's not helping anyone. So we want to make sure that all of those things are taken care of. And the client didn't realize either that it was not zoned that way. So thankfully we're able to communicate and hopefully get this sorted out so that this client can get their funds and move on. So just be prepared and support all those supporting documentation. If it's a quote, make sure it's added. If it's equipment that you're purchasing, show the estimates of the equipment, or if it's leasehold improvements, show the estimated cost and be prepared with cost overruns. Even all of those documents are extremely important to have them attached. And number 10 for tips in a successful loan is ask for help. There are many, many, many free resources available to assist you in accessing funding. And we understand that writing business plans is super daunting, and you're not alone. Like I mentioned earlier, the Chamber, the BIA, the NADF, the Venture Center, Business Enterprise Center, we're all there to help you. So don't be afraid to ask from your funder, from whatever funder you're looking for. If it's the BDC, contact the BDC. If it's us, contact us. All those local organizations that support small businesses are there to help. And there's many, many great organizations here serving your community. So don't be shy, reach out, and we will always guide you in the right steps. So now I'm ready. This is a lot faster than I thought, but I'm ready for any questions that you may have. Go ahead.
Thank you, Roxanne, for that insightful overview. Yes, so at this time, we'll open up the floor to questions. So if you want to raise your hand, or you can pop it in the chat, and we'll respond to as many as we can.
The presentation has been recorded, so you will have access to all of these slides, as well as the video recording of the verbiage that went through with it. Like I said, I recognize that I made the presentation so that it was for both grants and loans, because then it can help not-for-profits as well as I can help the private sector. Both often have different requirements that are there, but reaching out to one of our organizations, one of the Timmins economic development organizations, will always guide you in what's currently available and what's best suited for who you are and what your plan is.
Don't see any questions yet, so please throw them in the chat if you have any, or feel free to unmute. I have one, Roxanne, if I can throw one your way. So you mentioned traditional lenders don't typically look at startups, so we're thinking of like the big 5 banks. Is there generally like a time frame that after which they will consider or start to consider businesses?
Yeah, so I mean, that statement is sort of, some lenders won't, but what happens is oftentimes when a business is at the startup phase, often the conventional banks will ask, it'll rely a lot on your personal net worth and not so much on the business. They do need to see the business plan, but a lot of the primary, like the first risk, is all going to be assessed on your personal finances. So it is still available for you. However, what I've typically seen in businesses being assessed as a separate business loan and not using your personal worth is often 2 years of business. So after 2 years of running your business, then you become eligible for things like the BDC and those types of organizations. But certainly, you know, the banks do funding in business startup, but usually it's all on your personal and less on your business plan. The exception is like the Venture Center. You know, I like what we do, but we do loans up to $750,000. I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning. That's what our lending portfolio is. And for us, our businesses have such a small component of our business review is your credit and personal worth. Really, our business decisions are made on your business plan, which is important that you understand and that it's thorough, and your financials. It's less about your personal than it is about the plan. So there are other little organizations like us that look at the business startups in that way, but usually it's 2 years of being in business before they'll look at you.
Okay, so if you have any feedback on what topics you'd like to hear more about in the future, the Chamber would like to know. So please feel free to comment in the chat, and we'll keep question and answer open for a few more seconds here, just in case anybody has any lingering thoughts or questions. All right, well, not seeing any questions so far, but I want to take this time to thank Roxanne and her team at the Venture Center for joining us as our event partner, our pillar sponsor, and our presenter today. We value our partnership as we seek to grow our community and ensure that Timmins remains a beautiful place to live, work, and play. If anyone in this meeting is interested in supporting one of our events, please let the Chamber know. Today is just one in a series of that the Chamber is hosting to ensure that you, the business owner, have the information you need. If you have suggestions for our next topic, please reach out to Carmen at the Chamber. Registration is now open for our upcoming Protecting Your Data with Multi-Factor Authentication event with Great White North Technology in partnership with Neonet. Scheduled for June 28th, as well as our succession planning, Prepare Your Replacement event presented by LMW Coaching and Mediation in partnership with MNP, scheduled for June 29th. To register, visit the Chamber's website. Please enjoy your day and thank you for your ongoing support of the activities of your Chamber.